All right, it's been a while since I did a book review, so let's talk about Wheel of Time Book 1. Now, this is a book I've been reading through the series currently. I'm actually on book 4, and I've been meaning to do the reviews of these books. So let's get into what they are about, what I like, what I don't like, and we'll start with book 1, Wheel of Time, Eye of the World. So this book is the first book in the series, obviously, so it introduces you to all the characters, the base story, the good guys, the bad guys, the central conflict, the lore, all of it, the whole crazy thing. So my basic sort of thoughts are, first of all, Wheel of Time Book 1 is an excellent first book. Again, I'm on book 4, or maybe I'm on book 5 right now, and it's really good, it's really enjoyable. The books continue to get deeper, flesh out the story, flesh out the characters more. And this book does a really great job of getting you into it just kind of right away. Feels a little bit cliched at times in the sense that you have the heroes coming from like a small kind of nowhere backwater town. They're nothing special initially, and then you find out that they're like the most special, kind of like the chosen one, but instead of like a single chosen entity, there's kind of like 3 main characters that you end up following around, and then also a lot of adjacent characters that you end up following around, and there's love interests and all of that. So it's got a little bit of a Lord of the Rings group wandering around trying to fight the bad guys thing going on, but it is distinctly different than Lord of the Rings. It doesn't try and ape Lord of the Rings the way that a lot of fantasy books do, so that's pretty awesome. My next sort of big thought on Wheel of Time Book 1 is that it tells a complete story, but it leaves things open for more. So what I mean by this is it's a good sort of self-contained book. Like you could read Eye of the World and just enjoy it, and that'd be great, and it's a good book, and I recommend it. But at the same time, if you read it and you go, oh my gosh, I want more, there's like a whole series of 12 books that you can read. So the book itself is satisfying. It doesn't have like a crazy cliffhanger ending where you're like, well, nothing got resolved. Like some stuff gets resolved, and then some other stuff kind of gets opened up that more things are going to happen. Obviously, it's a series of 12 books. So I like that. In terms of the characters, the villains, and the lore, I really enjoy them. The main character, Rand al'Thor, he, again, kind of the young hero that doesn't suspect that he's anything special at first, and then calamity strikes his village and propels him into greatness, whether he wants it or not, kind of thing. And so that's kind of an interesting start. Again, it's happened before in other books, but I think the Wheel of Time does it well. The other thing is the villains are pretty awesome and scary and not great as well. There are the Trollocs, which are kind of like orcs. And then there's a bunch of other sort of demon-like creatures and stuff. And there's a lot of fights. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of like, just when you think everything's fine, boom, here come Trollocs, and they start murdering everyone. And there's big fights and lots of sword battles and stuff. So that's cool. The lore itself is interesting because, again, it's like the Wheel of Time. So you get like this whole circular time keeps, the fights keep happening over and over again. And this is like the current iteration of this eternal battle that keeps going as the Wheel of Time keeps turning, and so on and so forth. The other lore, as it gets deeper, is interesting. And like other books get much deeper into the lore. But a few things you get introduced to in this first book is the concept of the Aes Sedai, which are basically the witches or sorceresses. You get to find out about the magic system, which the magic system's kind of interesting because it's got elemental bits to it, like earth elements and fire and air and all of that. But then it also has kind of a whole male versus female side to it, which is interesting, and not necessarily a lot of books necessarily go that direction. So I thought that's an interesting kind of thing that you find a little bit out in the first book, but you don't find out as much. Again, there's, notions of, the men who use magic end up becoming kind of cursed, and the women don't necessarily. You got the Aes Sedai as kind of like over time they start feeling a little bit like the Bene Gesserit in the Dune series, if you've read that. So that's kind of interesting, just as a parallel. And just in general, there's a lot of fun characters that are interesting that you know, enjoy kind of getting to know and seeing what happens to them as they go on their adventures, basically. The fourth thing about The Eye of the World that I enjoyed is that it's very straightforward good versus evil. So there's not this notion of like, yes, there are some gray characters, but fundamentally you have Baalzamon, I don't know the best way to say it, but like Great Lord of the Dark or the Devil or what have you. Big, evil, monstrous bad guy. And he is the one controlling the Trollocs and the hordes of bad stuff. And at the same time, you have like the good guys like Life who want to live. And, you know, the Aes Sedai believe that they are the good ones and they're trying to fight Baalzamon. Someday I'm going to figure out how to say that. They're trying to fight the bad guys. And that level of like moral clarity, I think, really helps the story because it kind of tells you who you should be rooting for. But also it doesn't, like, yes, there can be plot twists and stuff, but it doesn't tie itself up in knots trying to say that the bad guys are good or the good guys are bad. Instead, you have these characters who are put into this very dangerous situation, and they're clearly attacked and the world is clearly at danger. And so the stakes are there, and it does get you invested into the, like, well, if they don't save the world, everybody dies, or they're all going to be, you know, put into some kind of hell on earth situation, as it were. So that's cool. And ultimately, I'd say Eye of the World as a book made me want to read the next book. So obviously, I would say it's a good book because, you know, fundamentally, I enjoyed it enough to make this video and say, hey, this is a good book. But also just in general, like, if you're going to have a series of 12 books, or I think that's how many there are, the first one's got to be good enough that you go, all right, I'm in, let's keep going. And this book definitely did that for me. It's obviously done that for a lot of other people. And so, you know, to just keep this short and sweet, I would recommend reading this book if you like fantasy books, if you like something that's Tolkien-esque but different, and really just if you like a good adventure with magic and battles and intrigue and romance and all that kind of stuff. Wheel of Time Book 1, Eye of the World does that, and it does it well. So that's my book review. Hope you enjoyed it.